Well, thank you for joining us today, and welcome to Lunch and Learn, Building a Strong Research Team. Just some quick housekeeping. So we don't have the mobile app today, and I think everybody's gotten a little bit used to being able to submit their questions on the mobile app, but we are going to be just doing it old school at the end. So maybe if you have questions, you can jot them down just so that you can keep them in mind. And then at the end of the session, we'll have some time, and we'll just have you raise your hands, and we'll have about 10 or so, maybe more, minutes for the panelists to answer your questions. So my name is Mary Cross, and I'll be one of the moderators of this session. A little bit about me: I'm a clinical research coordinator and respiratory therapist at Children's Hospital Colorado in Aurora, Colorado. I started my career at Children's Colorado as a respiratory therapist about 12 years ago, and then I transitioned over to CF Research in 2015, where I work with a wonderful research team. I've got 4 other research coordinators there. 3 of them are here with me today. So shout out to Allie, Dana, and Anna for sitting over here. We also have a grants analyst that works with us, and we have a research manager, and then we have 5 fabulous CF providers. I also currently serve as the research coordinator for the Center of Sweat Analysis. And I have no relationships to disclose. So today we're going to be hearing from a great group of panelists, including Irma Bauer, Alex Wilson, and Christina Payne, and I'll be co-moderating this session with Dawn Cruz. And I'll hand it off to Dawn for introductions.
Hi everyone, my name is Dawn Cruz. I'm from the University of Michigan. I'm a clinical research manager there. I worked at the university for 24 years, and I'm undecided if it's been 22 or 23 years in research. It's kind of a toss-up of how it happened. We have a small team, but we're a pretty awesome team. There are 2 research coordinators here with me today. One is brand new as of Friday. So we brought her so she can really get her feet wet. I have no relationships to disclose. Okay, so I'm going to introduce Irma, and she's going to
introduce myself.
Yep.
My name is Irma Bauer, and I've been at Washington University since 2004. I started my career as a research lab technician so many years ago, I will not disclose that, and transitioned over to clinical research after completing nursing school in 2012. I've been with the CF research group since 2015 and took over supervision of the group last year. I had the good fortune of having Patty Burks as my mentor for a few months before she left for the foundation, and also Tina Hicks before she transitioned from our group. I work with an amazing group of RCs, Sarah Smith, Emily Burns, and Taylor, who are right there. I have to mention them here because I could not do what I do without that.
Oh, and I have no relationships to disclose. Can everyone hear me? Okay. I am Alex Wilson. I am also I'm a dietitian and diabetes educator by training, and was the dietitian in the adult CF clinic at National Jewish Health in Denver, Colorado for 8.5 years before transitioning over to clinical research. I directly manage 2 RCs now, but hopefully we'll get up to 5 soon. And then I work with another CF research team at National Jewish too that has 4 other research coordinators. One of them is Katie, she's sitting in the middle. So we work closely together, but I don't directly manage that other team. We've got 3 PIs directly for our team with a couple of sub-Is, and yeah, that's me. Thank you.
All right. Hi, I'm Christina Payne with the University of Kentucky, which is located in Lexington. My background, I am a registered nurse. I started in an adult ICU, the medicine ICU actually, where I worked for about 5 years. at the university. I, as nurses sometimes do, got burnt out and wanted a day shift position. So I stumbled upon the CF research team and joined their team in 2016. So I have now been in the research nurse coordinator role for 6 years, and then in 2017, kind of by default and having the most experience, which is crazy, I then got to be the lead and the manager supervisor of our research team. So we are a small team as well. I have a research nurse coordinator and another vacant research nurse position, and then we have a dedicated regulatory coordinator. So they are really keep me in check and are fantastic. We see both adult and pediatric patients at our center. We have about 350 total CF patients. And there's about we have 3 main PIs, and then we pretty much, since we're a smallish team, put all of our providers on as sub-Is for our studies. And I don't have any relationships to disclose.
So first, I want to thank all of our panelists for being here with us today. We really appreciate it. And today we're going to be discussing how to build a strong research team. The topics that our panelists will be covering are showing on the screen right here. So during this discussion, our panelists are going to be talking about their experience with promoting teamwork, cross-training, overcoming staffing shortages. They'll also talk a little bit about how they encourage open communication and resolve conflicts with their teams to keep them happy and engaged. And they'll be discussing strategies for recruiting, mentoring, and personal development that have been successful for them at their sites. So now I'm going to open it up to our panelists. The first topic that we're going to cover today is how our panelists promote teamwork and how they ensure proper training and productivity and quality of work at their sites, even during staffing shortages. So now you can see all the questions that we're going to be discussing. Irma, I know that you've had experience with team development interventions with your team, so I'm going to give the first question to you. Can you tell us how teamwork can be improved through TDIs?
So developing a sense of team, a place where together everyone achieves more, can be improved through team development interventions. I know everybody here would love it if I just recommended a trip to one of those escape rooms or scavenger hunts. Let's face it, participating in one of those activities would be a fun day away from work, and wouldn't it be great if we all could go back to our PIs? And Irma said that if we did one of these, we'd be a really strong team. Unfortunately, I can't do that. I know those activities do really promote a rapport with each other, but as far as scientifically based interventions, the following have been proven to help with teamwork, and those are team training, leadership training, team building, and team debriefing.
And then can you tell the audience here how you train your new RCs?
Well, first I'd like to give an example of 3 examples of how teamwork can be improved using these interventions. And the first one is under leadership training. Our site really strives to provide constructive feedback, or as I like to phrase it, learning opportunities. There isn't a focus on the person, but the task and how it should be completed properly. So if someone did do something that wasn't quite correct, we just go over the task, how it should be done, and this way that coordinator can then teach the other coordinators how to do things. So just giving feedback at the appropriate time when it needs to be given. Secondly, under team building, I really think there should be a stress on role clarifications. For example, our site uses a primary research coordinator and a backup research coordinator for all our studies. There are clear defined roles for each so that there are no misunderstandings of who needs to do what. Backup team members are not only there to help when the other team member isn't there, but backup team members are there to help during those long study visit days and to really truly be there for the primary RC. And then there's team debriefing. It's really important at our site, for instance, after the first visit or after a screening visit or the first study visit for a study, we actually have a debriefing session just like a clinical care team would. And we discuss what worked well, what didn't work well, what can we improve on, not only to make the experience better for the patients, but also to make the experience better for the RCs. We try not to have an RC do a screening visit or a day one by themselves, because let's face it, there's always that unexpected, oh my gosh, we need this, so that you have a buddy there to run and go get something or help with that.
That's so true. And then I'll go into the next question. How do you train your RCs when you're already short-staffed and be able to get that coverage?
When new staff is brought on, we all know that there's a tremendous amount of training that needs to be completed, and a lot of that is on the computer-based. City training, Epic, or whatever medical record system your site uses, and all the sponsor trainings. We do feel it's really important to give RCs time to do that, to complete those tasks, but also when the opportunity arises, to get them away from the computer and allow them the opportunity to do study visits with the more experienced RCs, to develop those good habits and, to see why they're doing all that computer work and sitting at the computer for so long. There's also wonderful resources regarding research coordinator training on CFCRNet that's available for everybody to download. I have printed some and put them on the tables for you to look at. There is a documentation form for clinical research staff training, a document for onboarding considerations. There's a clinical research training plan 2020 that Emily from our site discovered on CFCRNet and actually tweaked it for our site. We also pull other staff members from our team to assist with training as well, not just other RCs. Our PI, Dr. Rosenbluth, is a fabulous teacher. He's willing to explain things, and when a new RC comes on, he sits down one-on-one with them and gives them the history and talks to them and answers their questions, which is really valuable. And Dr. Atkinson, who oversees our pulmonary function lab, is always willing to give us impromptu lectures on PFTs and ECGs. Our training is, I'm a nurse, and I am not familiar with telemetry and ECGs and stuff, and he is so willing to just sit down and go over things and even PFTs to help us more feel comfortable doing the procedures, but also to be able to explain them to our patients, which I think is really important when they're not blinded to their PFT results. Dr. Jessica Pittman at our site is always available with our multiple breath washout questions. She is a multiple breath washout whisperer, we call her.
That's
because,
amazing.
oh my gosh, she knows everything about it, and we are so very grateful for that, because sometimes Sarah and I just please dear machine work, please dear machine work. So please look to your PIs and other staff for training when possible, when you are short-staffed to help out with things. Also, Trenton Gordon, who's the program coordinator at the TDN Coordination Center, can grant access to this, the CFTDN's online course, CF Overview for Researchers, is fabulous. It goes over basics, CFTR protein, genetics, affected organs, sweat gland. I mean, it's incredible. So I really highly recommend you get your new RCs to look at that as well. Making sure staff is aware of why they are doing things is really important, I think, in their education. and, making sure that, they feel comfortable asking questions, and we're always asking, are you comfortable doing this, and not letting them do things without their comfort level.
Great, thanks so much, Irma. A couple of different things. One, I really want the MBW whisper.
Oh, no, we are not giving her away. And we told her that.
Because that would be a fabulous thing to have. But also, I just kind of wanted to reiterate to the whole audience that when you get back, I definitely suggest that you go on CFCRNet, because Trenton has done a lot of work on the website, and there are a lot of things that are on there that are easier to find now. So if you go on, you might find all kinds of resources, including the ones that Irma just suggested. It's really fabulous, especially with all the genetic research also that's coming out. Like, the modules and everything are really great. So definitely take a little bit of time just to explore and see what's available for you. And then thank you so much, Irma, for bringing all of the handouts. And then also at the end of this presentation, I have a slide that has all the links on it. I don't know if how easy that'll be to share, but they're there for you. So my next question is for Alex. So Alex, with the turnover that has been occurring in the industry, what are strategies that you've used to maintain productivity and quality of work at your center?
Yes, so I have experienced a lot of turnover the last couple of years, and so we have definitely had to do some reprioritizing. So this summer, our TDC director and I had several discussions about where we are and where we want to be. So really just having kind of a tough conversation about how we can move ahead. So in that conversation, we really came down to the fact that we are a TDN site and therefore a mission-driven team. And so we really want our goals to focus on choosing studies that explore new and existing therapies that control and cure CF. So sometimes some of the really fun ones that I'm like, we should totally do this. She's like, maybe that's not meeting our overall mission and our main goal. So having to pull back the reins a little bit. And then with that too, having to say no to some of our feasibilities and to some of our studies while we work to rebuild. And that's okay, which has been hard for me to kind of come to terms with, but that's okay. So also recognizing this impact, the PIs and the RCs. So then we had a conversation with all of the PIs and with the RCs too, about how we can redistribute roles and responsibilities on the team and then outside of my direct research team. So including the clinical team more, and then also including the other research team to help with some tasks. So this, I think, I'm hoping will increase collaboration, and then down the road also foster more of a culture of research on the clinical team. And I'll give an example, actually, that one of the RTs that we've asked to help with some more research types of projects was actually just at the last RC session. So I think it's working a little bit, hopefully, so far. And then focusing, the other thing too is to focus on the studies that are open. So those that are starting up, I can kind of put on a back burner, which then also means being really honest with the sponsors and the study startup teams for those teams to say, hey, this might take a little bit longer than it normally would take our institution, because I want to make sure that the patients that are currently enrolled in studies are being taken care of really well, and we are managing those studies the best that we can. And then also then in terms of what's coming up in our pipeline, really focusing on those that are high priority for people with CF and for the team. The turnover is also, again, if it's not obvious, for us to focus on our priorities. And that is not an easy skill sometimes to learn and to prioritize and pick what I think might be important, other people might think is less important. So compromising on that a little bit as well. And then constantly reiterating what our goals are to the research team and maintaining that correspondence. Other things that have helped are increased frequency of our team meetings. So we usually have a Monday team huddle, just the research coordinators and myself. And that has really turned into daily meetings with my direct research coordinators to strategize for the day. So we've had a lot of visits with half staff over the last 3 months. So we just talk for about 20 minutes at the beginning of the day and say, what do you need? What can I help with? What can be put on the back burner? And then at the end of the week, when we think on Monday morning, how in the world are we going to get through this week? Because really it can be very overwhelming, to take a look back on Friday and pat ourselves on the back and congratulate ourselves for getting through what we did pretty unscathed, all things considered. And then making sure that RCs can communicate their questions and concerns, especially if they're feeling overwhelmed. So I usually have monthly one-on-one with each RC. So if we need to meet more than that one-on-one, my door is always open. Please stop me in the middle of what I'm doing. I might think that it's really important, but it's not more important than making sure that they are being heard, especially if they're feeling overwhelmed. So listening and being available. And then lastly, reminding ourselves that our quality of work is really important. So again, when we feel like we have all of this stuff to do, to take the most important thing and do that really well, especially with research, so we're not making those little mistakes, which end up creating more work by having to fill out deviation logs and blah, 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 all that stuff. So trying to do it right the first time and understanding that if we're not getting everything done, all of that work is going to be waiting for us tomorrow, and we can come back to it later.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Alex. So I heard Alex talk about this earlier, and I was just really impressed with how she strategized how to get through this, especially being short-staffed, a few people, which I think quite a few of us have experienced this recently, and just really pulling in and collaborating with multiple teams, which is something I don't know if everybody thinks about, but, you know, like collaborating with your clinical team, like really seeing if there's any other research professionals that can help you at your center. I think sometimes we don't think to like actually reach out beyond. So I was really impressed by that. And then also just the reminder to just take a step back and just exhale and kind of think about it and then prioritize and decide what really needs to be done at the time and how you're going to get through it. So great points. Thank you so much. So now I'm going to hand it off to Dawn to discuss our next topic.
I'm back. So for the next topic, we're going to discuss how managers develop a culture of research, encourage open communication, and resolve conflicts to keep their team happy and engaged. That's why it's so small. Sorry. Now I can't see it. Oh, there we go. So for the first question is for Alex, and it's what are strategies you have used to foster a healthy team environment during challenging times?
Cool, thank you. So I have a lot, sorry if I start rambling. But first is that I asked my team this so that I'm not just speaking from what I think I'm doing to foster a healthy team environment. And so I asked them truly, do you think that we have a healthy team environment? And thankfully both of them for now said yes. So here are some things that came up and some feedback that I got. And the big thing is that we are a team. So we don't operate in a silo. We're all here for the same reason. And then they also feel strongly that us being able to ask each other for help is really important, and to just recognize when you're in the weeds and to say, I need some help to get out of here. So then also providing a safe space in two ways, providing a safe space. So first is for people to be allowed to be their authentic selves. So and what I mean by that is that they feel like they're coming to work to a judgment-free zone, So I did have some situations where people, they're not with the team now, but were being pretty judgy about another person, and you could tell that she didn't feel very comfortable. So that is now something that I certainly will be making a point up front that that is not allowed, and setting those expectations to be yourself and be in a judgment-free zone. And then to be able to, the other part, to be in a safe space is the second way, is to be able to discuss their mistakes. Research is pretty stressful, right? And we have to say every time we've deviated from the protocol by 1 minute, right? You have to let everybody know that. And I think people coming in to being a research coordinator, that can be really stressful. So making sure that they feel like they can talk to me about that, and like Irma said, having debriefing and learning opportunities, and how can we prevent that from happening in the future, and all of the ways that we have to document it, but no judgment, because all of us have these things happen. So again, kind of that judgment-free zone. And then it's really important to give space for me time, not me, but like your me time, but everybody needs to know they have their own me time. So making sure that they're taking their breaks and going for walks, something as little as wearing your headphones to do data entry, because some people can just zone out that way, and I'm walking around with headphones in my ears all the time, so I totally get that. So always tap me on the shoulder. You see me walking. I'm not ignoring you. And then, like was mentioned earlier today, to make sure to use your time off. It's there for a reason, and we need to be able to do that and to just totally de-stress and not think about work. And then encouraging delegation. So I think this is something that especially newer RCs need to, it helps them develop some of their leadership skills and being able to ask for help, but also knowing that that's also a form of delegating a little bit. So recognizing that, again, that they're getting into the weeds. Maybe they have a really busy day and they need help processing labs or scheduling the rooms, or they just had somebody cancel and they need to cancel the rooms and do all those things that are on our checklist for a visit day. So with that too, I think it's really important to talk about planning ahead, and with that planning ahead, then being able to point out what people can help with for the day. And then I acknowledge my own downfalls as well and my own anxieties. So I lay in bed at night thinking about all the things that are going on, and did I do this and did I do that, and oh my gosh, this person doesn't meet inclusion criteria because they have whatever lab. And so coming in, and I know that I've been thinking about that all night, coming in, and instead there were times that I'd come in and just like start listing all the things instead of going, hey, so I was laying in bed at night thinking, and I was kind of freaking out, did we address this and did we do that? And so that they're understanding that I'm not just coming in and barking out orders, but why I am coming in, and that's the first thing that I say to them. It's not usually, I've also gotten better about saying, hello, good morning, how was your day? Instead of just like doing that. So I've been learning a lot as well. And then being able to ask tough questions for them. So when they come to me with, why is it like this at the institution? And why do we have to do this? And this is crazy. And so being able to talk through that, and then being able to go to my directors and my managers and my PI and say, why is it this way? Is there a way to make some changes? And then being able to be that sounding board between the two places. And then encouraging them to ask questions too. And lastly is that I really try to encourage them to use their own voices. So I'm CC'd on a lot of emails with sponsors and with the medical monitors and PIs, but I really want them to be the one to respond to emails and to have the Zoom conferences with them if they have an additional question, so that they can learn how to navigate these waters and to develop those skills.
I think Alex makes great points, and I think one of the most important points is we are all human. We've all made mistakes that the new coordinators make, and if we can acknowledge them, work, and it helps us all grow. None of us are perfect, and nor will we ever be. So I think that's great information, and I think like taking a step back and having a little space when you're having that overwhelmed day, and maybe when you see someone drowning, that they don't necessarily have to say, hey, I'm a mess, I don't know what to do. Jump in and try to help them. You know, that's part of being a team, I think. So the next question is for Christina. What strategies do you use to keep your staff engaged?
So one of the most important things that I think we can do as leaders, and I mean leaders as supervisors or managers or just leaders as a team member, we're all leaders in some way, is to take care of ourselves. I know this has been a theme running through this week, but we need to take care of ourselves first and foremost. If you walk through the door and your cup is already empty, you are not going to be your best self. You're not going to be able to advocate for your patients. You are, as Alex had said, you know, opening yourself up to mistakes that will cause more work later. So we need to learn how to just manage ourselves. So I do strongly encourage my team to utilize our paid time off. I know Patty had talked about it this morning, ironically. And, you know, as she had said, our institutions provide this as a benefit for, I believe, most of us, if not all of us, in some capacity. It is typically viewed as a paid benefit by your employers. And so it is factored into your total compensation. So it's there to be used. You shouldn't waste it. So I have started to really focus on utilizing mine to set, you know, a good example. So I also then have to, you know, set boundaries. I will try to completely log off my computer. Of course, I set my out of office, but like you got to turn the computer off. Of course, I have my email on my phone, so I log out of that as well. I log out of Teams because the Teams messages that come through when you are, you know, supposed to be off work is actually probably more difficult to ignore than the emails. So I do all of those things, and then that's, you know, I'm trying to set boundaries for myself and to also show my team that, like, this is okay. You can also set these boundaries. This also encourages my team to follow my lead and maybe troubleshoot any situations that may arise with study patients or sponsors or anything like that. So I've been in this role, as I've said, for about 5-6 years, and it can be a very high anxiety job, but I've started to realize that maybe even the situations that seem incredibly urgent are not actually as urgent as they are. Now, of course, safety events are a big deal, and you want to, you know, meet your reporting requirements and SAEs and all of that, and make sure your patient is taken care of. But what I've noticed is that usually we are taking care of our patients. And so if it's just, you know, shooting a quick email to the sponsor and letting them know, you know, this is what's going on, but we're going to give you more information in, you know, a couple days, that is okay. Same with the IRB, you know, all of those things. So a lot of things can actually, if you are informed people and just take a step back, it can probably wait. I try to respect my boundaries of my staff as well when they request off. Something that I kind of struggle with is kind of like Alex and her nighttime anxiety. I come up with a flood of questions when my people are off and things I want to talk about in those 5 days. So I try to create a running list so that I'm not, hammering them with 15 emails throughout the week of just random thoughts I'm having, but can address them kind of when my team comes back and we're all back together, and these are emails that have come up, or these are things that I've seen, and let's discuss them now. But that way, they were not bombarded when they were trying to enjoy their time off. So I just want to emphasize kind of the biggest takeaway that I think we all need to tell ourselves is that things will be okay when we're off work. Whether you're off for a sick day, which you're supposed to be then taking care of yourself because you're sick that day, or if you are down at the beach with a cocktail, like you are allowed to be off work. And as much as we are all type A people, we have to trust that someone else will handle the things that we have going on for that short period of time. And it will be okay when you get back. You may come back to a lot of emails. You may have to just sit with your headphones and coffee and just go through an extra amount of emails when you come back, but it will be okay because you are prioritizing yourself. And if you're not prioritizing yourself, you're gonna get burned out, and then there's not going to be anybody to answer those emails and to be there for your team. So definitely take your time off. Encourage your PIs that it will be okay to take your time off. But I have found that most of them are understanding and, should agree because they should also be taking time off. Not, that we need to know in advance,
Yes.
but not unexpectedly would be
Similarly.
great, but yes.
We
So-
need to approve that time.
Yes, we need to approve the time, but once it is approved, then they can take their time off. So prioritize yourself. That's my advice.
So I personally think Christina makes really great points because we got to care for ourselves, so we're not going to be any good to our team. And I'm really going to learn from her taking time off because I really don't. And we are all together at work more than we're at home, so we have to be ready and prepared for each other, so we do need that time to rebuild. So that's kind of my thoughts. So our next question goes to Irma. How important is it to set work environment expectations in order to develop a culture of respect, encourage open communications, and resolve conflicts?
That's a mouthful.
I think it's really important for everyone to know what is expected of them and what will and will not be tolerated. Having clearly defined expectations can hopefully avoid potential conflicts before they even arise. Currently at our site, we have an awesome staff that understands you need to be prepared to step up during periods of high activity and heavy workloads. You have to pick up the pace. If one team member is caught up on their work, they should just ask if another team member needs help. And be prepared to listen to each other and communicate effectively. I think communication is another key word that's been going around. We can't read each other's minds. I don't know, if you're busy and you're not saying something or you feel overwhelmed. I think it's really important that people just say, hey, I need some help. Going beyond minimal expectations, I think all RCs do that. That's what we do. Currently, we're fortunate that I am not dealing with any personality conflicts at our site. That was not always the case. And those are hard. Those are hard to deal with. And if you as a manager are unable to resolve those conflicts, ask your PI to get involved. Coming from someone up higher who can say this is the way it should be, is really beneficial. Don't just put all that burden on yourself. If you can really establish a one-for-all and all-for-one attitude, I think the workload becomes more manageable for everybody, and I think everybody enjoys themselves better. We either succeed as a site or we do not. I tell my team that all the time. We get studies because as a site, we do a good job. It's, not me or you, it's all of us. We aren't one individual, we are a team. We're a TDN site amongst many, and we're all working for one goal, to cure CF. So remember, I was pretty astounded at the talks today, especially the RC talk, how many centers are 1 or 2 RCs only. And that blew me away because I am so fortunate that we have a team of 4, and I think sometimes we get overwhelmed. So for those people who are just, for those teams who are 1 or 2, I want to make sure you guys know we are here for you guys with Yammer. with, now that our numbers are, call. I mean, don't reinvent the wheel, which is why I, brought those brochures too. A lot of stuff has been figured out already. Reach out to team members who are doing other studies. I call, RCs who, have started recruiting for a study already and say, hey, what was your experience on day one? Tell me what to expect, Do things like that to make your life easier. We're all in this together.
So I think the key that we're all taking away from this is to communicate. Like, when we come in the office in my area, we're kind of friends and workers. And like, we catch up, if it's a Monday, we catch up on what happened on the weekend, how your kids are doing. Be human with each other. Because we all have a whole lot of stuff that we're dealing with besides work. And just be that team so everybody knows they can rely on each other. And I think that helps a whole bunch. So, and then you're able to communicate. So I hope my team feels that way too. Yes. But,
Scooch up here. Thanks, Dawn. So now we're going to switch gears a bit, and during our next discussion, our panelists will talk about strategies they've used for building a strong research team through recruiting, mentoring, and also how they encourage ongoing training and personal development at their centers. They'll also touch on how their teams have adapted to this hybrid work environment that so many of us are now working in. Okay, so this time we're going to start with Christina. Christina, can you tell us how you encourage personal and professional development at your site?
Yeah, so I believe I mentioned this earlier. I work at a pretty good sized academic medical center. We have about 350 CF patients that we see, so it's, medium sized. But sometimes it will feel as though the institution's resources towards clinical trials and research coordinators can leave a lot to be desired. So I do encourage my team to participate in the activities that are available. So for instance, our human resources department actually offers quite a lot of leadership training courses, and these are not just like supervision courses. This is just for anybody, leadership courses that teaches you about like communication strategies and different personality types and all of those things. And they used to be in person, which can be a barrier. Now they are via Zoom, which is a little bit easier to, get into your workday. So I have suggested those things. We also have lunch and learns through our institution that is, either focuses on the Office of Research Integrity trainings and IRB things, or, through our general research unit, which we call the CCTS. So they have usually, some research-focused things. Sometimes it's a little more bench researchy, but it is good still with, clinical trials and kind of the overall landscape that is happening. Then, where our institution lacks, I do emphasize, as we all have for days now, the use of everything that the TDN has to offer. So we're all here at NACFC. I encourage my team to travel, though I will say nobody's here with me, but someone's having a baby and, it's, life has happened. So while I am alone, we usually do all show up. So I encourage us to take advantage of traveling for this conference, for the TDN spring meeting. Spoiler, I may prefer the TDN spring meeting because it's definitely smaller and all of us all the time. So it is, sometimes I get a little bit more out of that. And then we've also started to kind of think outside of the CF box a little bit too. So I encourage us to look into trainings and conferences that are offered through ACRP or SOCRA. They do a lot of good like regulatory stuff and what guidelines the FDA has and all of those rules and things. They're good at focusing on kind of that stuff. So you can ask if those opportunities can be paid for through either your TDN grant or, because it is research and it is, development opportunities for your job. Sometimes your PIs may have residual funds left over that kind of sit in this bucket untouched at institutions for a long, long time. Don't be afraid to ask if, anybody has any residual funds that are sitting there unused and to, pay for any of these conferences and stuff. It can be a lot of money out of pocket, but honestly, it's not as much money to the institution, again, because these residual funds are from studies that you have already completed and didn't use all of the budgeted amount for. So that can be a nice way to, get some use out of that. And then, of course, you've all have heard that the TDN offers ACRP certifications. So if you have questions about that, feel free to reach out to any of us. My team all did sit for those exams once we were eligible, so we are now all certified. Like I said, we're a small team, but we're all certified, which is awesome. And then I also ask our department to pay for our annual ACRP membership renewal fees. So some people prefer SOCRA, they will pay for that too. Again, these are just little out of pocket expenses that may be reimbursed through your institution and can give you access to different communication boards and just other institutions, see how they're doing, and then some CEU credits, of course. So my team is small, engaged, but we're small, but we're engaged, and so we've actually participated in quite a lot of the TDN offerings that they have. Ryan did the Loft RC program. I've mentioned that we've all obtained our ACRP certifications. I actually sat on the protocol, I'm still sitting because it's a 3-year appointment, but on the protocol review committee. We also have written for the TDN Times before. We've participated in the mentoring program, which is fantastic. We've been mentors. Some of us have been mentors. We've all been mentees, right? Did I get that right? Apprentices, yes. So even if within your institution you feel a little bit stuck, we are all here in this room to help you. And there are definitely opportunities out there to kind of grow and collaborate with other coordinators and sites to grow in your knowledge of clinical trials in CF and outside. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Christina. And I'm going to apologize for the slideshow going on behind while Christina was talking. A little bit of technical difficulty up here. Such great points to make. I think that a lot of times people don't realize what's all available to us. I know that I got my CCRC, and then so did Allie and Dana, all through the program that's offered. And they also have a really great training program that goes along with it too. So, that's something that everybody should definitely take advantage of. And then so many other opportunities that are out there. And I have not thought about asking about residual funds. So I think that's a great thing to think about.
Yes, a lot of times they just sit there unoccupied. I have to give a shout out to Liz Hardigan, though. She's the one that told me to do those things, so.
It's a fantastic idea, fabulous. So then my next question is also for you, Christina. So how has recruitment changed since COVID?
So I actually was going to focus on the recruitment of coordinators versus, because you can read this kind of different ways, whether it's our study patients, which I will admit, based on our metrics, we are not excelling at, so I'm open to ideas. But I'm going to focus on the recruitment of coordinators and kind of training as well. So before COVID, everybody within our research team and the clinical team, we were all in the office 40 hours a week interacting with each other. Now we have this very fluid hybrid model between the work from home and in the office. And because our team is small, we don't necessarily have defined days and structure. It kind of is just depending on what's going on that week and that day and what family things are going on that day. So we hired someone in the middle of 2021, the middle of the pandemic. And training of that person was the first time we had to train someone in this hybrid model. And that was something I was not prepared for. And it was a struggle. And that person doesn't work with us anymore. And I don't exactly know if it was just not the great fit or, the 2-year rule of people leaving or, maybe we just didn't train them as well as I could have. But anyway, when you are trying to match your coordinators who have a lot of experience and autonomy with someone who is brand new and at home a lot of the time, the new staff just doesn't know what they don't know. They don't know what questions to ask, and trying to kind of do over-the-shoulder teaching via Zoom or Teams or whatever, it just isn't the same as when the entire team was sitting in the office all day and you'd get, a random email from the sponsor asking for X, Y, and Z, and you could pull the new coordinator over and be like, hey, let's look at this together. It just doesn't flow as easily as, it used to. So that doesn't mean that you can't. It just takes more planning and structure than kind of I was used to. So, I've mentioned to several people, I have a vacant position now, and, it is a challenge to try and hire and even find someone to apply. And I do know that just the industry in general and that the era is different than it used to be. So I'm trying to be patient and find, someone who's a good fit for our team. But my plan, we'll see how this goes, but my plan is that when training this person comes, I want to set up very clear boundaries for that person up front and about office time, because I am concerned if, somebody wants to come in and thinks that they're going to get only a work from home position. That's not going to work with, research trials. I need you in clinic, and I need you meeting patients, and I need you to be here to conduct visits. So one of my plans is that for the first 90 days, I want them in office to kind of help with that very vulnerable period of learning and new things and kind of seeing, meeting with the new team members and meeting with the clinical care team and kind of seeing all of the different things that can come up with research that you won't necessarily get at home. As someone, has more experience and can prioritize their workload a little bit more and has seen some more things, sure, you can definitely, there's plenty of work to be done on a computer. You don't need to drive all the way to the hospital to sit in front of your laptop all day. But there's definitely a lot to be taught. And I think that is definitely an opportunity and could be very vulnerable to getting lost with kind of this new era. It's not to say that you can't work from home, because I love working from home. But I do think that it needs to be done in a way that when we're training people who have no experience with research or even just no experience with CF and it's brand new, it can be a very vulnerable time for the team. Let's see. And then we'll see how this goes, but our institution has recognized that in general, they're not, recruiting coordinators is a challenge. A lot of us just steal from the other department, and that's not helpful to anybody. Which also creates a siloed animosity among us, but so we are the College of Medicine, because that's who I'm, employed under technically, has created a research coordinator, regulatory coordinator group to kind of speak with the dean and get a better understanding of what is actually happening to us and how they can support us institutionally. It's been a long time coming, so we will, and it's brand new, so we'll see how this working group works out, but I would encourage you all to see if something like that exists at your institutions, or maybe, if that is something you would be motivated to start. I think that they're trying to kind of review job descriptions. Things are very different than they were 15 years ago, and we are very behind in the way that we classify jobs and the way things look for research coordinators. So we'll see. We'll see what becomes of this. I know that other institutions have worked on this and, looked at ladders and all of this. So, my university likes to be a little bit behind and slow to the trends, but they're getting there. So we will see. I know that the industry is really struggling right now as a whole, but I don't know that I answered the question. It's changed a lot.
You answered the next question too, which is perfect.
I've made a lot of, it has been a struggle, and, I think a lot of positives have come out of COVID, too. The work-life balance has improved, but definitely with new team members, it can be a little disjointed.
Yeah, I think so too. We've been experiencing the same thing at our site, like pretty much the exact same things, where we brought in some new people during COVID, and it's hard. Everybody's, I think, right now trying to figure out sort of that balance, and I do think that there's a lot that can be done at home. We have a lot of work that is admin, that we sit at the computer, kind of like you said, all day long, and that can definitely be done at home. And then, for the work-life balance, it makes it better. It's more rewarding. Hopefully, it helps with retention. But then there are also things that really absolutely need to be done in person, and really having newer people be able to shadow and see those things and be able to show them things too. So I think everybody, we're all learning right now, and it's just kind of trial and error, and, we'll eventually get it completely figured out, and it'll be fabulous. And then, just hiring, I think, has been tough across the board. I mean, I've spoken with so many people that they're saying the exact same thing, that, they're short-staffed and there's just no one to hire, which is why we absolutely need to keep our good people. And I know at our center, they're also looking at doing some stuff with job descriptions and possibly creating some new positions for some of the more senior coordinators, so there's somewhere to move up to. So, I mean, I think this is all just something that we're kind of all in it together trying to figure out. And that being said, because everybody's experiencing it, I thought I would just kind of open this topic up to the panel and see if Alex and Irma had anything that they wanted to also share with the group, just regarding COVID and hybrid and recruiting. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me? Do I need to move that closer? Okay. So I feel like because I've had to bring on several people and then have them leave, I have streamlined and I've also thought back to what do I want to know? What would I have wanted to know as a new RC? And then also having come from the clinical and not really had experienced research before. So I feel like I've come up I have a onboarding booklet that I give them that has stuff about research and our checklists for the institutions, and also when I'm interviewing, also telling them you're onboarding to 3 different things. You're onboarding, if you haven't done research before, you're onboarding to research, you're onboarding to the institution, and you're onboarding to cystic fibrosis. So it's not going to be something you totally understand right away. It's going to take several months to a year to feel like you're hitting your stride. But I'm hopeful that I can make the transition easier enough for you. So also having things scheduled ahead of time that I know they have to do, like their spirometry class. There's a class that our pulmonary physiology unit has once a month, so I have that on their schedule so they know when to have that. I have their checklist that we're going to go through. And I'm definitely going to try and meet with them a lot more frequently in that first 2 to 3 months so that I can make sure to look at the checklists with them, something I'm not very good at, but I'm going to be better at it. And then giving them the resources certainly for the foundation. I tend to give them the CF things later for all of the links and things like that, because it's a lot, right? Like if you go into CFCRMet, it is a great resource, but you can get lost down the rabbit hole. For sure. So just trying to point out the important things for them to have access to, and setting expectations up front, I think, is really important. And then for hybrid, I've gotten burned on a few things with people taking advantage of being able to work from home and maybe not. I'm pretty laid back. Like, you can come and go as you want. Just get your work done. You know, I come and go I have my set schedule, but I don't want to hold them to, you're here at 7:03, you are 3 minutes late. Like, that doesn't work for any of us, right? But please just get your work done and be honest about it. And so for work from home, it'll probably be similar where I'm going to wait for 90 days. And there's such value in the random hallway conversations and the doorway conversations. You know, a lot of good ideas come from those, and a lot of identifying, oh, you don't know that? Oh, okay, we need to have a conversation. I need to put that at the top of my list. So, yeah, so I think there's value to being in both places.
I'm just going to speak to the hybrid model because not with our current group, but our institution, our group was burned by people taking extreme advantage of the work at home, where work was not being done at home, and it became pretty obvious, and it was more difficult for those of us at work. So we did go to an at-work model. But then now with the team that we have, it's obvious that, you know, people are doing things at home and doing what they need to do. So we just look at we are now working 1 day a week from home. We look at the week ahead of us, and whoever doesn't have a study visit or is in a backup or anything like that can work from home and get those things done that they don't need to be at work for. I'm hopeful that we can go to maybe 2 days a week at home, but we're going to tread lightly into that space and see, you know, because I do feel like there are so many things, you know, organizing the kits, being there for delivery. You know, there are things that work so well when you are at work, but, you know, I think that's a site-by-site kind of conversation and what works for you and things like that. I'm just very grateful that now we do have 1 day a week, where then you can schedule those things where doctors, you know, where it's easier to do things. So, and hopefully we can go to 2, but we'll see.
Great, perfect. Yeah, so we're just all figuring it out right now. Thanks so much. I'm going to skip this next one since we've been talking about things and we're getting a little bit short on time. I want to make sure we keep some time for audience questions. But I want to make sure that I thank the panelists for all of the information they've shared, so much valuable information. I really appreciate the time that you guys have spent on this. And then also thank the audience for being here today. And you can ignore what I have on the screen about the mobile app because I thought we would have it, but we don't. So I'm going to hand this over to Dawn and we'll open it up to questions, and just old school, raise your hand if you have a question.
I do want to say one thing. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Mary, for a great presentation. And as Christina was saying about like institutions making a career ladder, I highly, highly suggest, because we just went through the career ladder, if you can get on that committee, get on that committee so you're not asked later to try to fix the issues. So get on it early to help yourself. So anyway, we'll open it up to questions and go ahead.
Thank you. So how do you, as a manager, balance being the boss and then also being friends? Because we were talking about in the last session in the culture of research, but also you want to make sure that are you going to be the bosses, like you need to be here at 7, you need to do research. Because research is very checklist, very detailed. So what are your tricks for balancing being like that, but then encouraging your employees to also be themselves and have fun with them?
I'm just going to say I like to consider myself a team member first, my managerial role second. There are things that I need to do as a manager, but I'm hopeful that my team knows that I'm on their team. I'm their team player. I'm not really I'm more of a supervisor than a manager, actually. So I'm fortunate in that I'm fostering the team part, and then I let them know that, you know, if they're having issues, yes, I'm the person to come to. I'm the person that will take it up the chain. You know, what do we need to do? And support them in that role as a supervisor. And just, you know, I'm so lucky in that, you know, when we work out assignments together. I like to take a team approach even to supervising as far as, who is ready to take on a new study, let's discuss this together. I think sometimes if you're a manager or supervisor, you're like, okay, well, you just look at the list and you don't have enough and just give it, as opposed to talking it out and, seeing where everybody stands and who's feeling overwhelmed and who can take on a new one. So that's sort of how I do it, but I'm a new super. I've only been doing this for a year, so I have a lot to learn.
I definitely struggle with this, but I will say that my staff, my team that I have right now has been with me for most of my supervision time. So I think that we were all on the same level when I did get promoted, for lack of a better word. So we have a great rapport, and thankfully they are great and don't need discipline, like a lot of discipline. When I have new staff members, I try to come out more structured at the gate and to see how they are, because as a new supervisor, I was burned with somebody who, definitely took advantage, and this was pre-COVID. She had taken a lot of advantage, and so now I come out early with, like, these are the rules, these are the structure, this is how, we're gonna do X, Y, Z, and, I'm here for you, and we're a team. And then as I kind of see how their personalities do end up matching, I can kind of step back a little bit and be more of their friend too. But it is definitely it's hard. It is very hard, especially with, like, we have a small team. So I know there's pluses and minuses to having bigger teams and smaller teams, but sometimes having a smaller team, like, you are just so enmeshed in it that it can be hard to be like, no, now I have to wear my supervisor hat and we need to talk about performance and things. So it's definitely tough.
It is tough, and I think it's something that I struggled with a lot when I moved into the manager position. And things that I have learned are to set expectations right up at the front and saying, again, you can be your authentic self, please be that person, but also this is a judgment-free zone, and I want you to feel like you can come and talk to me when there's questions or concerns. And then I think also a big part of it too has come with my feeling more comfortable with all of the people that I would need to go and talk to about certain things. It's okay, I don't know the answer, but being able to go and say, let me go ask my director, let me ask the regulatory specialist. So and then them seeing that has also seen that I am somebody that can answer questions. And then also to making sure to take time to say, what is important to you? Personally, like, what are things that bring you joy outside of work? And what are things, just that question, what's important to you? And then kind of knowing that. And then also asking what's important to you, like, what are your goals? So Katie was asking me earlier, I need to ask that question of one of my staff. Where does she see herself in a couple of years? And then the other thing too is just, like, we've created a little, Thursdays seem to be our bubble tea day. So just like this little, like, oh, okay, do you want your same flavor? Yeah, I'll have my same flavor, and we'll, like, drink our bubble tea and talk about something at the same time. So setting those expectations and boundaries and knowing that, like, we're friendly to each other, but we are not besties because I'm still in a manager role.
And sometimes it's hard to put that manager hat on in small teams.
Yeah.
That's a tough question. Out of the gate with a tough one. Are there any other questions? No other questions?
Something I wanted to mention that I, promised I would throw in my talk and then forgot. I know that we speak a lot about having teams, and I know I was also surprised by the survey results this morning, that a lot of people only have teams of 1 or 2 people. So even if that is you, that is awesome, first of all. But you still have all of us to rely on, and you still have a PI of your studies, so you should still be able to take your vacation and not feel guilty. And if you are sick, you are still allowed to be home and take your sick time. So again, I know that, it's great because I can rely on another 1 or 2 people, and not everyone has that, but there should still be someone who can put out an absolute fire for you if it cannot wait a day. So still take your time, and you are not the PI. You are not the PI, so don't forget that, because the PI is responsible for the study, despite the fact that that does not seem true. And so you are allowed to be off work. So
And where there's
even
smoke, there's not always fire.
correct.
So let it smolder.
Let it smolder and take care of yourself. Yes, because I know that I cannot imagine being just a team of 1. So if that is you, we empathize with you, and we're all here to support you. So
I'll add something to that. I'm about the regional cooperatives. Who is confused by them? Are people confused about what like the purpose of the regional cooperatives are? Because I want to try and clarify that. No? Okay, no.
okay, well,
Hands
I'm a
up.
little confused
Okay.
until
Go
they
ahead.
then said something about it includes care teams. So that's when I got confused.
Okay. So the regional cooperatives, so the goal of it, right, is to encourage referrals from site to site so that we can meet enrollment of all of the clinical trials. The other purpose of it, though, is to network within your region. So use that regional cooperative to create relationships with other RCs, other PIs, all of that, because that's just a really good way, especially if you have a question about how did you recruit for this study and enroll, and what was your screening visit like, et cetera. But also, if there's a fire and you don't know who to talk to, call one of the bigger sites in the regional cooperative and ask for their help. So it's really meant to be a networking opportunity as well as a referral source.
And that's where the TDN meeting in the spring is so good, because you can meet people and then you can steal and share shamelessly, as they say.
Yeah, yeah.
And you had a question.
And they're still doing the call a friend, yes, yeah.
That's,
Have you done any training or leadership courses for yourself? You all kind of grow into this leadership role without having managers and HR staff and those kinds of things. What do you do yourself and how do you professional leadership?
I participate in everything, for better and for worse. Yes, I have to learn how to say no. But I really like to participate. I've done, as a dietitian, I was an apprentice, and then I was a mentor for the nutrition program, and I've been an apprentice for the RC mentor. I'll probably offer to be a mentor at some point. But yeah, yes. So I've done a lot. I could list a whole bunch of things, but
and
you don't
some
hear it all.
institutions have organizational learning where if you're
Yeah.
going to manage people, you have to go to classes.
Yeah.
Usually it's a little bit later than the management position, but you have to do it.
And that's where I stand. I'm looking for those classes.
Yeah, well, I think that you brought up some good points of doing things if you needed to do it outside of the TDN box or the institutional box, there's those opportunities too. And then as a dietitian too, there's the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and so I've participated in the local boards there. So if you're a nurse, you can participate in the nursing boards, I don't know. And then the ACRP has local ACRP chapters and SOCR chapters. And so if you don't want to go big, you can start small. And then you can also do things within institutions as well. Like we have a SMART for the eco-friendly group at our institution. And then there's little things you could do there as well. So yeah, I have lots of ideas. Yeah.
I think it's best if you can find a partner in that same role, and it helps. Well, and sometimes, like, being the manager at your institution is a lot different than the information we get at the TDN meetings or these meetings, because we're governed by our institution. You know, so you got to take that into mind, too. Exactly. It's like, go back and do this, and it's like, you know what they would say to me?
Yeah.
Exactly.
But there are some good books too that, I mean, I haven't read them all, but I could give you the list of things that have been recommended to me. So,
There's some good
Yeah.
TED Talks.
yeah, there's good TED Talks, yeah, and almost all books are on Audible now too. So if you spend 2 hours a day in the car, like I do, you can listen to them instead of read them. Yeah, yeah. Other questions?
Anybody else?
All right. So this is my resource page, though it is very difficult to read, and I'm not sure that this will be posted. I thought it might be, so I figured I would include it, but they are all things that you can find on CFCRNet, too. And then I just want to thank everybody again for being here today. Enjoy the rest of the conference, and we're all done.
Someone wanted to take a picture of us.